All right, so this is episode 2. Leonard, welcome aboard. Jake, always overtime with us, isn't it?
Always.
Definitely.
Right, that happens. You get talking, that happens. You just start, when a good conversation goes, it just continues to flow, you know?
Oh, I can have conversations till 3, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. I mean, my grandparents used to call me a motor mouth.
So now I want to know. Now I want to know about Q and where you are going with Q.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to put that up on my channel because it ends up being traced and everything else.
What?
However,
I stopped talking about all that stuff when they started really going after everybody. Right now, if you go look, you'll see I did Orion Rising News right up until the election, and then I just disappeared and have hardly done anything because I was becoming too algorithm banned. So I backed off of all of that they could get me for and just started talking about, spiritualism and reality and physics and all the normal mundane shit they don't care about.
Yeah.
Right. And that way,
which is why I usually keep my channel more or less on that level.
Yep. You can do just the same. You can do the exact same thing that you can do by saying all those things without saying them if you do it right. And that's what Michael was doing.
If you say
earlier.
all those things without saying them.
Yep. That's what he was doing earlier. We all were, until I was blowing it. And then he was like, all right, let's just crash this plane.
If we're gonna go off the rails, let's go off the fucking rails.
Let's go off the fucking rails, baby. Yeah. So, but yeah, you can do all the same stuff. Everything's esoteric and it's there. So all you have to do is get it into people's head, whether it's through osmosis or whether they actually are paying attention and understand what you're saying. I literally did this. If you look at my last webinar, some of the people that were in the webinar complained because 2 of the people in the webinar, they were like, what did those people have to do with anything that we were talking about? And I was like, what you don't understand is that every single person that I had speak told the exact same story
from a different perspective.
And I lined them up that way on purpose. They were parables of the exact same story. And you don't think that that person had anything to do with what you said.
The other one. Because you didn't see the big picture.
Because they didn't see it, right? Because I have a friend of mine. A friend of mine. She's what these girls call toxic positivity. She's so positive and oozing with it that it turns some people off. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't for others.
But see, however, lots of people love those positive people because they're easy to manipulate and everything else. However, being with the love of God and the forgiveness and everything else, people have a tendency of thinking that you're a pushover as well. Yeah, go ahead and turn the other fucking cheek. Yeah. Whereas I was brought up Mexican to where, I'm gonna turn the other cheek when I'm.
Well, I'm looking for my machete.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. So I'm not 100% in vibe with what the Lord tells me to do. I'm a work in progress, as one minister mentioned. We all are kind of.
Right. We all are. I'm a minister as well, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, well, 10 years ago
as well. I'm not, but I want to be.
But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was a completely different person. And my attitude was, like you said, turn the other cheek. That just gets your ass kicked, man. Right. And so that was, I mean, and in this world, it's true. But in the metaphoric self, if you think about that in a metaphoric way, not in a physical way where you give in to that violence, what Jesus was saying, my opinion purely again, was not that you just allow them to do that to you, but that you do not return in kind and do that back to them, because then you're just propagating the hate and keeping it going. There's other ways to win that battle without being physical.
You end up fighting their battle, and they're better at it than you are. And he also tells us
if you're doing that against evil, that's their wheelhouse, is that violence.
Yeah, exactly.
Violence.
So you're going to lose because they know how to do it better. Or lies, like the Dems were doing against Trump.
Right,
they
with the manipulation, the lies, propaganda.
They control all the propaganda. They can do whatever they want. You can't play their game. You're going to lose. It's like producing things and thinking you're going to compete against China all the time. I work with international business. I see companies saying, "Oh, we're going to do this," and we're going. You can't. Their labor is cheaper. They don't pay taxes. They already have their own shipping companies and everything else. You can't do it cheaper than them. The only thing you can do is do what they're not doing.
Correct.
If they don't see a value in, that's the niche where you can actually succeed, because you're not.
I was working with the guys from Ubuntu, And we were taught that, in fact, it was well, I can't think of his name right now, Michael Tellinger, who he created Ubuntu.
I love him.
And
Dude, he's
I
fantastic.
love him to death. We were talking about how are we going to be able to do this, right? And they kept talking about trying to do it in the modern world. I said, guys, you can't. They own
Modern
that.
world already destroys you. You got to think
Yeah,
more.
they
like
own
Amish.
that. You have to go to some place they deem unimportant, like Africa, right? Somewhere in Southeast Asia where they don't care.
But Ubuntu started in Africa, in fact. But the thing
Well,
that
it did.
interested me about
It actually started there. It's an African word. Yeah.
well,
yeah.
yeah, but see, Tellinger is from South Africa. But the thing
Yes,
that
he
I liked about a lot of his studies is that he was studying the circles, the stone circles that
Yes.
are throughout Africa. That he theorized that they were energy sources because they're apartments and everything else, but there were no doors, there were no windows, there were places for cattle. No, there were no doors, no pins, no thing. And the kinds of stone were highly resonant stone.
Yep.
And then there was another structure where he hypothesized to where it was generating enough energy to where they could do genetic operations, where he hypothesized Adam and Eve were actually created. So there's a lot of stuff that interests me. Then you get into the Venus Project, which really interested me for a long time as well. But Ubuntu is also getting into the 0 point. And that's one thing that I like.
He
as well,
started
because-
about 3 years ago getting into it, and he wasn't onto it 100%, but he was there, and I wanted to talk to him, and I haven't had a chance to meet with him to find out if he got there, because like you were talking about with the physics in the background, that was my major in college. I wanted to do this. I wanted to work for them. I wanted to work for NASA. I wanted to do it until I realized just exactly what the dragon was, and then I went, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to help the dragon of any color. So I stepped back. But the whole 3, 6, and 9 that we have Tesla working
with
on,
you. Your learning
right?
stayed with you.
Yeah.
And that 3, 6, and 9 comes from Tesla, doesn't it?
Well, he didn't invent it, but he understood it. It's actually the golden mean ratio, which is phi, not pi, which is 1.048, I think, or something like that. That's the actual number. I have a video somewhere. I'll have to look it up and tell you what it is. But that's the mathematical equation. So that is the actual algorithm. That's
A man
the
after my own
Fibonacci
mind.
sequence is the right angles
Michael.
that make the spiral, right? That's the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
And then the phi, the golden mean ratio, is the arc on the outside points of those that create that spiral. That's the 3, 6, and 9. The 3 energy is spiraling. Let's just say for sake of argument, we're going counterclockwise.
Because it's a
And then
vortex.
the 6 information, is going the other way. The 9 energy is the God energy.
Oh my
which flips
God!
the two around.
I went into a castle that Leonardo da Vinci. He was hired to design the staircase. When you had the soldiers coming in through the front door, they'd go into the staircase and they'd be rounding around, and the people upstairs would go in through another door, and they'd be winding down the staircase without ever meeting the army.
Right, because one was on top of the other.
No, because they were going in different
two different spirals. Yeah, you have
so
two
they could
different
actually
spirals.
see the enemy running up the side, and they're running down, and the enemy's going, how do we get to them? Because they didn't know, because everybody's used to one staircase.
Yep. So that's the difference. That's 3, 6, and then the 9 energy is the God energy that creates the figure 8, that creates the infinity. So that's where you get that lock point. So so it's 3 plus 3, right? And here's how it works. 3 plus 3 is 6. So our energy, me, you, me, all of us, our energy and our intention, using energy from nature and time, which is 6, we use that and we bend that to our will and we give it a purpose. And then when you give it that purpose, 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 is the God energy. So we, because we're the God energy, we use our energy plus space-time energy, and that becomes the God energy, the creation, the logos. Then when you create that, you become the creator. That's 12, or the 13, the perfect number, which is the 1, which is in the center of the clock face. Like Jesus was in the center of the clock face and had 12 apostles. Jesus was the one. The way to God is through me. He was the proverbial heart chakra of the human race. So the way to God is through the center point, which is inside of me or inside of the center of the planet. It's the same center point. It's love. It's the creation. It's the word of God.
Yeah. I cannot add anything to that. Perfect.
I did a whole hour showing how all of reality becomes that algorithm that is that Taurus, that is that globe.
That's what I've been trying to explain in my book.
Yep.
But my physics evidently isn't as deep as yours. So I have to
That's
help
just
you.
that's just because I understood when I read Tesla, I started figuring that out. I knew the charm of making, which they actually used in the 1982 movie of Excalibur, but it's the Gaelic version, and I've only known one person, and his name is Charlie Hauer, who is a Freemason and a Templar Knight, who actually used the actual original Welsh version of the charm of making. And when I heard it, I went, wow, the version that I have is almost identical. It's just I'm not using Welsh, I'm using Old Gaelic, which would be, Old Celtic.
The resonance is different.
The resonance is slightly off. It's slightly off. So when he said the charm of making, I could feel the difference.
Spell worked more correctly.
Yep. Felt his energy. And I went, wow.
The problem
and
is
he
we
said,
got to get
you'll
away
have to
from
learn the way
spells
I
too,
say
because
it,
he
that's the
already
original.
warns us about that.
What's that?
We got to get away from spells because he warns us about that. The main reason is because we don't know. A lot of people use the spells and they end up having spirits and energies helping them, which always ask for something in return.
Right. They have their own agenda. Agreed.
Of course, which is why
so you have to be careful. But see, unfortunately, we as a hive mind complex, if we were to do the same, we would be creating, but we would also be creating with all of us individually. So in this place here, it's hard to create as a one because everybody has their own mind. We're not close enough yet. And that's what the teachings are. What Jesus was saying.
Babel came in because everybody was working as one, and God said, yeah, they are able to do anything within their power. And one of the things that you mentioned, whenever we combine our energy along with the energy of nature, and you mentioned that we contort or manipulate nature into our will to make the things happen. And that's where the essence of, because Jesus said, evil is within you. Just don't let it out.
Just don't let it out.
And so whenever we do things, whenever we twist nature to our will,
has to come from the heart.
Has to come from love.
Yes, has to come from love. Creation, love is the only way you can manipulate
it will
properly.
be blessed and work.
Yep. If you do that, and people always think that the as above, so below, as without, so within, that's backwards. It's wrong. Jesus talked about that. If you look at Jesus in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 18. Don't quote me. It's either Matthew 11 or Matthew 18, somewhere in there in the first part between 1 and 14. He actually says in there, when he's talking about God, God said, what you reap on the earth, so shall I reap in heaven. What you unleash on the earth, so shall I unleash in heaven. It is not as above, so below. It's as below us, so above. As within, so without.
Michael, we just talked about this.
It's the creation. If you create,
we had an episode on that, didn't we, Jake?
Did you?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the weird shit that I always talk about, Leonard, which is why everybody thinks I'm insane.
Yeah, me too. Agreed. No, I'm not saying I think you're insane. I have the same problem. People think I'm insane when I say this. I did this on my Earth Day show. I did a whole hour showing how all of that creates that same algorithm, that same energy that is literally the building.
So why aren't we rich? If we know all this stuff, why aren't we rich? Because rich doesn't really matter.
Because rich doesn't pay. Right. It's not what we're for. People say, how come you don't have a giant audience? Because I'm not doing this to get rich. If I wanted to get rich, I wouldn't be talking about anything I'm talking about right now. I'd be talking about chicks,
telling my buddy on Tuesday,
or muscle cars, football.
You know, it's like I was telling my buddy on Tuesday that it's like, look, it's not the messenger that's important; it's the message. That's what I want to get out.
That's important. People say to me,
as a messenger be me because I'd get some benefits, but the message has to get out. And God already proved to me that if I don't do what He's asking me to do, He's going to find somebody else to do it. And He's shown me a couple of other people that are already doing what I wanted to do 5 years ago. They're already doing it now. And me and my procrastination hadn't gotten around to that point because I didn't want to expose myself to that kind of ridicule. But
see, that's because you needed to round to it.
I was like 7. So it's been 40 plus fucking years that I've been down this damn rabbit hole, always thinking like a nut job.
Right. I was doing it when I was 15. I was talking about energy and how we affect each other, and how whatever I perceive you are as, or my projection of what I think you are, changes you in some way, and it puts an unnecessary burden on you. I'm 15 years old. People looking at me like I'm purple when I'm talking like that.
Yep. Which is why I started drinking and doing all kinds of other things to sort of calm that stuff down. In fact, when I there are substances that reduce your ability to dream. And that's been a certain benefit because I don't have that deja vu anymore.
Right.
And that's really relaxing. Not knowing what the future is calming.
When you
knowing what
don't
the
want
future
it.
brings.
I took a lifetime off, apparently. I was told when I was 21 or 22, my wife went to a psychic and asked about me. And she actually brought the cassette back, the little mini cassette, and played the session for me. She asked about me, and the psychic laughed and giggled and said, "We've been watching him for a long time." And she said, "What? I'm sorry, what do you mean? My husband? What do you mean?" She said, "Well, apparently he's supposed to be a teacher, and he got angry with the universe and decided that he wasn't going to do it anymore. And he was done. He was tired of it. He was going to quit. So this very last lifetime he was in, he refused to do anything besides just live his life. And since he's been born, we've been watching him to see, is he going to pick up the mantle?
He's going to be a teacher again.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously I decided to pick up and be a teacher again, and I was actually at that point trying to make that conversation in my head to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to do this or am I going to not? And then she played that tape for me and I went, all right, I get it. That's the sign.
That's my destiny. See, God
That's
has a real weird way. I mean, it's not always the same method, but he always has a way of letting you know what he wants you to do.
Yep.
Like you coming on this show tonight.
Serendipity.
Orchestrated or planned, but it's well within his wheelhouse.
Well, and that's what happens, and I tell people this because people will be like, I was doing the law of one, and I literally for 3 years and like 7 to 9 months or something. I started in October, and then 3.5 years later, here we are. I just finished 2 weeks ago, and I would be talking about something, a different session every day, right? I would just continue wherever I left off, and then people would tell me during the show or after, "Wow, dude, I don't even know how I found your show." And I'm sitting there in my house and I'm thinking, man, I need a sign. I need something. My life is this way or that. And all of a sudden I go online and there you are. And I come on and you're talking about as if you're talking to me. And I'm like, I'm not. This is the law of one. This is raw. That means that the universe, God, sent you here because what I have to say today is what you need to hear right now.
Exactly.
And they would send people to me, and I work with people that way. Someone will send someone to me, and then the same thing. I find that I get sent to other people, and I go, okay, there's another like mind. We need to work together.
Because that's how we help.
Because that's how we help. We all do it. We all help each other, and we all get the same word out. Exactly.
Because the message is, I don't know if it's exactly the same word, because I have a tendency of sticking to my credence in the Bible. I've got
well, see, what I've done is you heard me reference the Bible. I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church, so I'm a minister in the Roman Catholic Church, and then I went and got a ministry title through the Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona. So I am a Christian minister, but I'm also a Jedi Knight. I'm also I would have the title as a Merlin. Those are all the same title.
Nice.
Yeah, they're all the same title. And sometimes when I say that, people go, you are not all those things. I'm like, you can actually look those up.
Yeah.
I'm not
they
lying
are titles and they are
up.
things. And
yeah,
so my hat's off to you being able to get all those, because it's not easy to get the title of.
No, it took me a lifetime to do it. Literally took me a lifetime. I got my my ministry in 2016. So here I am, 53, right? 2004 was when I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. Right. So it wasn't like it just happened overnight. I had to work at it for a very long time.
I mean,
so
that's the thing. People think that success comes easy. No, it's built up over a very long time, but you have this image, this focus, and you're constantly working towards that.
Yep.
And I'm on my first steps
see
now.
that golden
like you
ring.
were 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, your knowledge is right there where the way you're thinking is spot on with the way I think, and people around me, that we're all, doing this. That's why I was like,
I've been thinking this way for the last 35 years.
Yeah. See, the best thing that happened to you and I was the internet, because it helped us get word out faster to more and more people. Before, it was word of mouth, and we'd have to write a book and hope that it sold and push it on radio shows and blah, blah, blah.
And maybe a couple of decades later, somebody might actually hear about it. And a century later, somebody might actually say, hey, maybe he was right.
Yeah, after you're dead, because it was like artwork. They didn't get it until 100 years after you died. And then they go, oh, man, I wish he was alive today. We can ask him questions about that. Right? And that's kind of the way it was. Yeah. So for us, we're lucky that we are in this time where I know that people want to say the internet is the devil, but
as
I believe
we say,
in
we're not
50-50.
lucky we chose to be here.
Well, agreed.
Especially
Agreed.
in the end
Because
times.
I'm here because I wanted to be here. I agree with that.
The souls that are here in the end times are here because they have a purpose for these times.
Yep,
Because
agreed.
these times are rough and they're going to need help.
We were just talking about this. I belong to a couple of different coalitions that are working with people like us around the world to make things, happen and to help get the word out. And we agree, because once the proverbial shit hits the fan, they're going to need us. We're going to be the wise men and women that are going to be able to help them.
But
to
see,
show
they're
them,
going to, but see, like me getting into a market, you want to get into the market when it's bad, not because you'll have success, because people trust you. Because when things were bad, you were there and you helped them. And so when things get better, who are they going to look to who helped them when things were bad?
The same people,
and that's the
the
whole
ones they
point. We
trust.
got to set them up beforehand, because when shit hits the fan, it's going to be too late. They're not going to be able to find anybody unless it's close to close and mouth to mouth, because in reality, we're going back to the Stone Ages, just like we've done all the other times before. Because unless you propagate the knowledge that you had before, you're going to go back to the Stone Ages, because most people don't even know how to make fire.
Correct. That's why I wrote a book about that, teaching people literally the basics, because they've driven that out of our society. The knowledge is lost.
Because if people depend on the beast, they won't be free.
Right. Agreed.
Something so strange though about like a campfire. I don't know what it is. Like you can sit there and stare into a fire. I can sit there and look at a fire for hours and sit around
watching other dimensions.
I don't know if it's
that's the allegory of the cave right there, bro. That's psychology 101.
You're entranced by the fire. It's hypnotic, which is why women love fireplaces.
Yeah, it's tranquil.
It's strange that we're so disconnected from it in society, and we're still able to connect to it on, like a primal level.
We're still
animals. It's because of the algorithm. When you look at the fire, it's doing the same thing to you, to your mind's eye, that Bach or Beethoven would do to your mind through your ears.
It was that comfort blanket we were talking about before, Michael.
Yep.
When we were saying why women marry certain men.
Yep. Yeah. Because it depends
just
on
another
the
form
of
of the
what their
same
immediate
creation.
psychological needs are.
Yeah. It's the comfort that is that blanket, like you said, that is the universal blanket that is in everything. And the problem is that we're not looking for that, and we need to look more for that and find that bliss that it is in everything. And that's the same equation. You can find that in anything, on any island, no matter where you are, no matter how you're in the middle of a modern city, but yet you can turn on Beethoven. You can turn on a fake fireplace and relax.
It's that resonance.
Yeah.
And it gives us back to the monks. There was a process. The only one guy who visited the Buddhist monks, he had their trust, so he was actually able to write down the process. And one of the processes was how they moved boulders that were like 25 tons up 150-foot cliff.
I watched them do that.
Huh?
I watched them do that, by the way.
You watched them do that with the horns and the resonance and the music and the sound, and all of a sudden the rock starts to shake and whoop.
And they just pushed it, and it just went up, and the other one caught it and put it in place. Yes. 25.
I've already read about that.
Ago.
I haven't seen it, but I
27 years ago in Tibet, my friend. Saw that. Didn't think it was going to be real. I wanted to see it, and when I watched that happen, I was sold. And that was just the harmonic resonance of the all of the instruments they used, and the sounds that they were playing was not beautiful in any way. It sounded like garbage.
It was specific for the material that they were trying to levitate. It's that Hutchinson effect, but they've known that for a very long time.
They were smiling like we were stupid. They're waiting for us to catch up. They're all waiting for us to catch up. There was a famous Sufi who was trying to become awake. I don't know who it was, but Aaron, one of the Aarons, talked about it on their channel. And the dark-haired Aaron, I don't know how to say his last name. It's because it's spelled
Moriarty.
Adbeke or something like that. So it's Aaron Abdeki. And he said this, that there was this famous guru who was trying to be awake and bought all these books throughout his life and was reading everything he could read to try and figure out what it would be to literally wake up and be and know and understand everything. And the day that happened, he went and gathered all of his books, walked out in the front yard and burned them all. They were all absolutely useless, because when you get to that point where you go within and you wake up, you realize it was literally in front of you always your entire life, and it's right there for you to see. And
And
you
it's
don't need
much more
any
simple
other.
than most people think.
Yep.
And it's in the simplicity where the joy of life is.
That's where our reality gets in our own way. And that's why I decided to do, is your reality getting in your way or holding you back?
Because lots
Because
of people have expectations to hold them back from enjoying what they actually have. I mean,
Correct.
I was an 8-year-old accompanying my dad, who was 28, selling things. And so he'd be in sales meetings and everything else, but he'd have his little kid there on the side. And I had to be quiet and not break anything and sit still and not bother. But when you're sitting there and not doing anything, what are you doing? You're listening. So I was listening to conversations from an almost 30-year-old with a 50-year-old or sometimes a 60-year-old. And when you listen to those older voices, they got some serious wisdom going on.
yeah, right.
And I
They've lived
absorbed
it.
that
They've
wisdom when I was
seen
a
it. They
kid.
have it.
And their complaints were, my kids are grown and I don't even know them anymore. And I missed the time when they were growing up because I spent 12 hours. I'm here at the factory 12, 14 hours a day. This place don't run without me. But I miss, now that I'm getting older and I want to relax. I don't know my kids and my kids don't know me. And that's something that they all have regrets that
Yeah.
are like not appreciating, like Shakespeare said, stopping to smell the roses.
Yeah.
The
And
journey's
people
long,
were so busy.
but if you don't
We're
enjoy
so
it,
busy with
the end of every
reality.
journey is death.
Yep. We're so busy with the reality and the mundane things in reality, which is this external hard drive that is this external ego that's been plugged into the universe to keep us the narrative, the internet, the narrative from the news channels, the narrative from television, all these distractions to keep us from the simple thing, looking to within and taking care of us and fixing ourselves. The
We
only way
can't
that you
help
can fix
others
the world
unless
is
we
to
have
fix
helped
you.
ourselves.
Yeah.
But we can't
have to
help
love
ourselves
yourself.
to the detriment of others. The objective of strengthening yourself is so that you can reach out your hand and help others. You can't help
Well, I
others if
think
you're
it's
drowning
I
yourself.
think it's just fixing yourself. It's not necessarily, bettering yourself. You just had to fix yourself. Get yourself on a level plane where you're able to make it by.
Well,
If
and
you can't
that's what
by
happens
yourself,
once you reattune yourself and you're doing all the right things, your
The
body, your
blessings
mind,
flow.
your spirit can't help but grow because now everything is running properly.
You're
So you
synced.
can't
You're
help
in
it.
sync.
Yeah.
And we
You're in
call it
sync.
blessing. Why?
Yep.
Because that's the infrastructure that God put in. If you pull out bad energy, you're going to get bad energy 100 times back. Karma, the Indians described it that way. But Christ said that if you give one dinar, then eventually you'll get back 100 dinar. Why? Because that's the way the machine works.
I use this analogy. It's perfect, Michael, that you said the way you said that. I use this analogy for people to understand in the movie. I think it was Empire Strikes Back when what's his name went to see Yoda and he was training with Yoda. Luke was training with Yoda. Do you remember that scene when they walked and they were in that jungle on the jungle planet there, the jungle moon, but there was that one dark cave and he said that place is cold, like darkness is there. And Yoda said, into the cave you must go.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what's in there? He said, only what you
take with you.
Yeah. And so he took his guns
and he took his weapons. You're not going to need those.
And he said, you don't need those. And he put them on anyways, and he went in there. And then guess what? It was him.
In the end, we see when the mask explodes, it's his face there. Because in the end, after all, what George Lucas was trying to do was implement a lot of Oriental realities, and sort of the samurai and the chi and that sort of understanding of reality, which is very romantic, but it's also a very good understanding of certain levels of this reality. Because the acupuncture and acupressure understands some of the mechanics, but I don't think they got the deeper understanding of how things flow. Then we get into all the kung fu movies and all, the chi and the woo woo stuff, but we don't understand that. So we think it's all magic, which was one of the points of my channel. I wanted to be able to explain scientifically all these things that I know to be real.
Agreed. Well, you see, the problem with the academic scientists, we talked about this before we went live earlier, is that the academic scientists don't believe in spiritualism. And so therefore they're never going to figure out the universe because they won't even fathom the idea that the universe was created out of love and out of love by the one true creator. And so because of that, they're never going to figure it out. That's why they don't have 0 point energy. Or I hear they do on some level, but
once the mechanics are figured out, once somebody else had the connection and draws it out, they can copy. Demons copy.
Oh yeah.
Create. Okay. And so whenever for example, one of the impetus for my book, besides that philosopher that said, who are you? You're one among 7 billion. But there was this ancient Asian text that I read. I was reading Sun Tzu's Art of War, and there was like 94 pages of introduction to it before it even got to the small text that is the Art of War. And one of the things that they had in there is an ancient saying, was that at the end of religion, you'll find science, and at the end of science, you'll find religion.
Yep.
And I took that, well, yeah, because they're both looking at the same thing from different perspectives. It's like Aristotle and Plato.
Right. Absolutely. So because of that, because of
two,
Aristotle and Plato, because of Shinzu, when I was younger and I read those, I said, they're right. You have to go down both paths. You have to balance both paths. You have to look at science, but you also have to look at what we would call nature or love. So you have to see those two together, marry them.
Because spirituality is connected to our consciousness. And now science is finding that consciousness is the source of everything material. Quantum mechanics tells us, but that was a debate 100 years ago between Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein, which was, what, if I'm not looking at the moon or concentrating on the moon doesn't exist. The concept is that, yes, there's a consciousness that makes the moon exist, but it's not yours.
Right.
There's a consciousness that makes all of us exist. And if he stops thinking about us, it's just like Thanos. We sort of dematerialize. Because without the conscious thought, the material doesn't exist. Because
correct. And that's the entire universe.
Because it's lost in the probabilistic masmorra of everything's possible. It's that infinite possibilities of the universe. So all of them are the same. They've all been done. Yes, they all have. But only you are walking your path in this particular time frame, and only you have made the decisions that you specifically have made. There are other versions of yourself that are on other lines, but this conscious experience is you on this timeline.
And it's unique to you, and just like mine is unique to me. So that makes
there are a million possible, years, but only one is you.
But only one is you, right? At any one given time, if I pull out of this avatar that I'm here and all that I am here in this reality, and I move to another place where I am and plug in there, I'm a completely different person with a completely different reality, although it's still the same base growing through a life.
It's your same consciousness. Yeah. It's the same idea of wanting to get,
just a different perspective, because my perspective is all of the experiences that this avatar has had, all is what I base everything on. So everything I see, everything I hear, everything I experience determines how I see, hear, and experience everything going forward.
However, what Bruce Lipton is a biological scientist that whenever I was first concentrating on consciousness, trying to find the scientific studies on consciousness, there was a trio of scientists that I enjoyed, but Bruce Lipton was the one that really resonated with me. He studied the nucleus of the cells. And one of the things that he wanted to know why they did the things they did, because it seemed like they have their own mind, they have their own consciousness and that sort of thing. And he broke down the fact that the pH levels, because he was going, but these are simple, they're binary. What makes them go? What makes them tick? And they found out that it was their environment. The pH levels of the environment turned on some parts of the DNA and turned off other parts of the DNA. And the environment, if it was too acidic, it would retract and defend. And if it was less acidic, more alkaline, then it would expand and grow. Okay, and so that resonance of fear is what ends up, we have insurance and we have this and we have, gates and we have guns and we have walls and we have guard dogs and we have lights out of fear. And fear moves all of that, but fear actually takes away from all the other things that you could have done when you grow. Fear makes the body become sick and ill.
Right.
Because of the environment that you create. And the only way that your body knows what to do is what your brain is telling you. Do what?
We also need it to grow. We also need fear to grow. I mean, you need you
have to have the antagonist. You have to have that so that you can grow. And in that whole thing, if you look at it, this is what you have to understand. This goes back to.
But sometimes the weeds overcome the seed.
Right.
Oh no, I agree. The fear can overcome you. but I don't necessarily think that the fear can always be a negative
Oh
thing.
no, see, that's what this pussy ass generation wants. They want to eliminate fear and any kind of. They don't want to face fear.
There's an extremist trigger warning side of society, and then there's the side of society that goes, okay, I probably shouldn't shake my hand in front of the lion's mouth because the lion might bite me.
They have no
Like,
but to
consciousness of
Michael's
that.
point, you have this next generation that doesn't want to face any adversity. They would rather go, okay, hold on, I'll just join your system so I can sit down and do nothing. You can do it all for me. There's not going to be any change there. That's stagnation. You're going to go backwards.
That's communism.
No, I agree. And that's what I meant before. Like, we're circling back. That's what I meant before when we were talking about the fact that I don't think people want to work for their money anymore. They would rather sit there and have it.
There are three reasons for that. First of all, they are not paid what they believe they're worth. In many cases, they're not. I mean, because the modern society gives us slave labor. Two, they don't see the benefit of the work because everything they want to buy is too fucking expensive.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, most of the time, do you think they're worth what they think they're worth? Because
usually they're blithering fucking idiots. That's why they make minimum wage.
Most people think they're smarter than they are, and most people think they're worth more than they are actually worth. And that's the truth.
A psychological concept. That is true for everything.
There's a reason.
Right, and that's the ego. That goes back to the ego again, right?
Yeah, I just my biggest problem is that I think I'm smart as shit and worth whole lot more, and that I get in my own way.
Well, then that's part of our reality getting in our own way. Our biggest problem, each of us, our biggest problem is us. We are the problem, not everybody else. Everybody wants to point at everybody else. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. No. It's my fault first.
When Jesus said, take the plank out of your own eye before you take the splinter out of your neighbor's. Sorry, Jake, we were talking over you. What were you saying?
Yeah, I apologize.
No, I agree. I agree with you guys. The only thing that gets in your own way is yourself.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that in society. But what I was saying was you need to have that entry level position in businesses, because otherwise, how do you have room for growth? If you just start at the top, then you're still going to want more. But
sometimes there's no room for growth because the guys at the top haven't died yet or retired for you to move up.
Agreed.
And so you keep waiting for that political opportunity to knock his legs out from under him so you can take his corner office.
Yep.
I agree. I agree that there's people that are stuck in the hierarchs, but at the same time, if you don't have entry level positions, you can't even think about those positions. Like,
I agree with you.
Have you read the book Blink?
Yes. Actually, I have. Yeah.
Okay. So he describes it perfectly there. It's what intuition, that sort of shit. We need the entry level positions so people know what the hell they're doing. They have to go through the pain of dealing with the real world. So when they're in upper positions, they know what it was like and go, no, dude, you're only going to hit your head up against the wall because I did that 5 times before. Okay. The 7th time I did it, I kind of learned my lesson. So here's a lesson I learned. Do it this way. It's easier. It's faster. And
that's what we were talking about before, Michael. You were talking about that before, where you have to be able to, instead of each generation having to go through what we went through to get here. This is exactly what he's saying. What we're going through and what we have gone through in our lives, we hope to bring to other people so that when they're going through what we went through, we can go, wait, no, you're going to get mad. You're going to get angry. You're going to have all these emotions. How about you skip over that? And we'll tell you why later. We went through that so you don't have to. And that's how you propagate the species. And that's how you make it easier for each generation. That's why when kids grow up now, they have a cell phone in one hand and a laptop in the other, or a tablet in the other when they're teething.
Lots of information and no wisdom.
Yeah. And no wisdom. But then they start to, I have a grandnephew who is brilliant. He's been sitting, his best friend is YouTube. I hate to plug somebody, but his best friend is YouTube, and he's not looking at porn. That kid's trying to soak up all the knowledge of the universe. He's one of those people.
I didn't even know that my kid was such an expert in world history, because I guess he wanted to keep up with me. So the videos that he watches on YouTube are his. Right? That's what he likes to do, and I think that's fantastic. I didn't know about that. Why? Because they both have. Why? Because my wife asked me, are you okay being down here in Brazil? I said, you give me 4 walls and an internet connection, I'm golden.
Right. Here's an example of that. I think he was 6 at the time. I think he was 6. We're over at his house for some event. And I'm type 2 diabetic, so I can't have like sugars and stuff. And somebody said, hey, we got corn dogs. Can you eat those? And I go, no. I can't eat those. And they go, someone looks at me and says, why? He's sitting next to me, looking at his laptop. He looks up, he goes, because of the honey.
Don't realize your sugar.
Because of the honey.
Yeah. And I looked at him, I said, how do you know that? He said, because they have the corn dogs, it's cornbread, and they have honey in the cornbread. And I was like, how do you know that? He looks at me and goes, YouTube. The internet. That's like, there's a commercial here in America. I don't know if you've seen it. And it's a hot dog commercial, and they're outside and they're putting together their hot dogs, and dad's got mustard and ketchup and mom's got mustard and relish. And they look over and the daughter's putting peanut butter on her hot dog. And she takes a bite out of it. She goes, And mom goes, where did you learn that? She goes, the internet. Big grin on her face while she's eating a peanut butter hot dog. I haven't tried that, but I put peanut butter on pancakes and waffles, and I eat peanut butter.
I love peanut butter. Right? I can't deny,
I put it on ice cream, but I don't eat ice cream anymore.
I've got certain things against, but before, whenever I read The Jungle, The Jungle tells us a lot about hot dogs, and I try to avoid for that reason. But after the Q drops and everything else, the hot dogs have a whole nother connotation to them that I wish to generally avoid. However, I didn't even know that corn. I was thinking about the carbohydrates from all the corn in the corn dog. I wasn't even thinking about the honey.
Yeah, and he immediately, the honey. They dip them in honey. Every corn dog says cornbread with honey.
Now I didn't know that.
I was thinking the carbs from the bread myself, but I was with you. The carbs from the bread. That's funny.
It's all new. All new.
Right? Smart kid. Smart kid, right?
But see, that makes the point to where all the learning that I had and everything else became moot. Because anything that I knew that I could tell people, the reason that I wanted to be the walking encyclopedia that I became was to have the answers, because I didn't have a connection to all the newspapers, books, magazines, and everything else that I had done. Nowadays, whenever I ask people, it's in the palm of their hands. They don't need my information. In fact, they don't need my services as a translator, because Google Translate
doesn't do it well enough.
But the Microsoft Office translator actually does a pretty damn good job.
That one's pretty good.
It's got problems, which I edit through, which is what I've been doing for the last year and a half. But evidently companies don't want to pay for that if they can do an intern do the same damn thing. And all the things that I spent my entire life studying to know are now easily accessible, in everybody's palm. So then you come into, why did I learn all the fucking stuff that I did?
But then you look at it, but nobody does that. They still, I watched the show where these people were preppers and they went off the grid and they weren't prepared enough. They didn't know what to do. So they called in this guy who would come and save their prepping and teach them how to prep. And I was like, do you guys have a cell phone? How did you connect to this guy? Through the internet. Well, you can go on the internet and look up everything that guy's going to tell you. Oh, wait, that doesn't get ratings for the television program that they're on. Right? So I just laugh. I laugh at that. And most of the programs, like when they did the Doomsday Preppers, the people that they had on there were fucking morons. And none of them would make it less than 6 months if the world went to shit. Yeah, same thing with the Alaskan Bushmen. I look at them and go, these guys are out in the snow chopping wood. What the fuck do they do during the summertime? Anyone knows. Oh, but wait, ratings for the show. That's right. We're not going to make it. Winter's coming. We don't have enough food.
Programming.
Yeah, programming. Agreed. Yep. I remember my buddy who worked for a military base. Oddly, every single place I've lived my entire life was either an ex-military base that I lived on, or I lived in the town that was created because of a military base. Every single place I've lived my entire life. And right now I'm literally living right outside of Sacramento. I have 2 military bases and 2 international airports that are next to me. Literally, I have one south, one international airport west, south, and then southwest military and west military base. And it's been that way my whole life everywhere I've gone. Right. So that's weird.
So you're an MK Ultra project there, are you?
Actually, well, we don't want to get into that, but yeah, there's a lot of that. Let's just say that I was recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Oh man, awesome!
Right, the last Starfighter, right?
Absolutely,
Starfighter. I was recruited. Dude? I love that because it's kind of that way. I was tested. We'll get into this. Let's go down that road. When I was 11 years old, I was in class and there was a knock at the door, and two women in lab coats with a clipboard were standing at the door, and the teacher came over and they talked to the teacher, and the teacher turned around and said, Lenny, you need to go with these people. It's okay. You're going to be
Sounds
fine.
like another story one of your people talked about, Jake.
So I get taken out to the quad, which the playground was behind the school, so it can't be seen from the road. There's now a Winnebago parked there. And there's other children that have lined up now. There's about 10 or 12 of us that are lining
And
up
if
to
they're
go
lab
into this
coats with their
Winnebago.
little clipboard,
And
then it's
every
all
single one
even.
of us was assigned someone in a lab coat with a clipboard. And we were told not to speak to anyone. And that when we went in there, the whole place was lined up with cubicles, one chair, cubicle, headset, something to do in that cubicle. You put on the headset, the headset tells you what to do. If you don't understand it, you get the attention of the person standing right behind you, and that person will lean down and you whisper into that person's ear and they will whisper back to you. You don't look at anyone else, you don't listen to anyone else, and you do these things. And the various things they had you do were testing for cognitive abilities, reverse engineering, being able to depth perception, things of whether you're telepathic, empathic, how quickly you were mechanically inclined, whether you could follow instructions, all these things. And they went through all of these. Then I went back to class. Then about a week later, two Air Force officers with my father show up at the door and get me out of class. Then we go to the principal's office, and the principal's no longer in his office. And we sit down in the principal's office, and they're trying to recruit me to go into the Junior Air Force Academy, that when I turned 18, I would have a lieutenant or captain rank and go immediately into the Air Force. And I would be in the secret program that they couldn't tell me about now or anytime until I was able to go through this program and graduate. And then I could never speak about it for the rest of my life, and I couldn't tell anyone about it.
So obviously you didn't go into this program. Otherwise,
I decided not to. Correct. One of the guys that was a friend of mine.
Actually, you were trained to say that you decided not to, so that information wouldn't ever.
Well, I wonder about that, because when I heard about those 20 and backs, I don't know if you heard about that, where they take people and they literally are gone for 20 years and they regress you and put you back into your body.
Yeah.
When I heard one of the stories from Corey,
there was a guy that was on Aaron's show that did that, wasn't he?
There's a couple of guys that talk about it. Corey Good's one of them. What's her name? Eleanor Eisenhower is another one. Eleanor Eisenhower, the granddaughter or great granddaughter of Ike.
Oh, I loved her on Edge of Wonder. Man, she's awesome.
Yeah. She was Andy Basiago's vice president for a little while.
She will be. She's awesome.
Yep. So when he said what had happened was somebody would come and knock on the door and say to him, Corey, you're one of the lucky kids. You get to go see the dinosaurs today. And he lived near a military base. And they would take him and he would go out and he would load up in his van. And sometimes it was a military personnel driving it. Sometimes it wasn't. And there was only 4 or 5 kids. And then they would drive. And he remembers now that they would go to the military base underground, take off and go somewhere, Colorado, somewhere in the Midwest. And they would go to another underground military base, work for a couple of hours, and then come back. They erased their memory, gave him the memory of going to a museum. And then he went back into class and then went home that day. When he described
Total Recall, right?
I remember doing that. I had that happen to me. No permission slip from my parents.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Total Recall.
Yeah, great movie.
Where they alter your memories and everything else, put in whatever you want, erase whatever traumas that you had. Isn't it good when they can probably program your brain that way?
Right. Well, and the problem with that is that if you don't remember it, then you don't remember it. So I haven't actually remembered, but I have the memory of everything else benign that he said, but I don't have the memory of being underground in the military bases. However, everywhere I've lived has been within 4 miles of a military base. And I know the one that I grew up in had catacombs I lived in a city called Concord here in California, and it's butted up against the Devil's Mountain, Mount Diablo, and it's an old volcano.
Yeah, I remember there's a TV show in the 70s about Devil's Mountain, right? 2 witch kids.
Yeah. Yep. So I found out from an MP, or actually he started out as an MP. He ended up teaching hand-to-hand combat to the Marines on the military base. And he was retired. And my mom was doing his wife's hair. And I was commuting with my mother at 16. She took me to her job, which was more than halfway to my job. And I would sit there for an hour, and then I would catch the bus to my job. And then I would come back in the evening and take a bus and go all the way home. But in the morning, I didn't have to take a long bus ride because I could ride with mom. Well, I would sit at her shop. Well, he would come in and tell me these stories. And he's told me that they had nuclear weapons inside there, catacombed underground military base, that what you see on top is like an iceberg. It's 1/10 of what's really there underground.
So you're a werewolf. At night, you're somebody completely different, huh?
I actually am ruled by the moon. When the moon is full, I don't sleep, brother. That's no joke. I don't sleep. Yeah.
That
moon, I could tell you could lock me in a room and give me no sense of day or night or what time of the year it is, and I would tell you we are 3 days away from the epicenter of the full moon. It's going to be the full moon will be at this time. If you look at the calendar, it's not when they say on the calendar either. The calendar's off. You look at a calendar, and I'm like, that's not the actual full moon.
The gravitational waves from the moon. Yeah. I don't have that sensitivity. I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, I do. I don't know why, but I do.
Hey, each one of us has our own gift, and there's a reason for those gifts.
Right. I just utilize the energy from the full moon because of that. And that's why I'm doing my shows on the full moon right now, because I'm utilizing that full moon energy.
Well, there's superstition here in Brazil to where they cut their hair, on a growing moon, and then the kids can't be on a waning moon and that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, they do everything. Like
a lot of people are superstitious that way. I agree. And some of it had, it harkens back to, if you look at like magic use, like you were talking about, paganism, Wiccanism, and a lot of the old school way of doing things was bound by the moon, the energy of the full moon, the energy of the new moon, the waxing and the waning, just like you're talking about. Yeah.
But
and there is something to that. There is something to the energy.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I try to explain through science, because I know there's something to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have propagated through the millennia.
Well, when you consider the truth is, look at the moon. Since Maldek blew up, we didn't have an ecosystem that worked. The moon being where it is causes the ecosystem to actually work on this planet.
Yeah, so that makes you question, is it there by chance?
I believe. Well, see, this is what I believe. I believe I got this from Ra in the Law of One, but I've already believed that beforehand. The moon is not there by chance. The moon was put in place because it needed to be there. It's the only moon that we have found anywhere in existence that is exactly the right distance away from the planet. That
for
this
a
moon
solar eclipse, for a solar eclipse, time.
For everything that it does, it's
and the tidal forces of the moon actually help the seasons and the growing and the tides and everything else, which keeps.
We wouldn't have the tides if it wasn't for the moon. Absolutely,
we wouldn't have life.
The moon drives the ecosystem of this planet. Yes. Sorry, Jacob, I talked over you.
No, I was saying, I was agreeing with you guys. The moon 100% controls our oceans. If the moon wasn't there in the position that it's in, the Earth would not proceed like it does.
Well, not unless the Kuiper Belt was put back together as Maldek. When Maldek was there, that gravitational pull.
That was I thought it was Tiamat.
No, Tiamat's coming still. Tiamat's still coming.
Do you guys think this was...
Tiamat's supposed to be 2032.
So that's what's going to take out the moon, right? It's not going to hit us. It's going to take out the moon, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to, or at least crack it in half. It's supposed to. We'll see what happens.
The problem is that the magnetic resonance of its passing will fry our brains, and we aren't going to remember a damn thing, just like all the other generations before us that had the same damn thing happen.
And that's very possible. And if it is, then there's a giant reset.
Yeah, which it's always been. But we have EMP protective things nowadays that can actually help us. And that's where the tinfoil hat comes from.
Right?
That's 100%. So that's what I
think that it's going to be different. I think it's going to be different once we hit 2032. Think about where we are now technologically.
I'm not sure we're going to get to 2032.
I do. I'm very optimistic when it comes to things. I'm a half full, half full guy, not a half empty guy. So I always see the positive in everything. I'm that guy that drives people crazy. I'll look at Genghis Khan and go, yeah, but there's still, I'm the proverbial Luke Skywalker. He believed his father was good and always would refuse.
But his father
to see that there wasn't good there,
But his father was. He was just taken over by the machine. He's more machine than man now.
Correct. But see, he understood that. So I see that in people. I see those people who are in service to self, and I go, okay, you have to make your choice. If that's the choice you make,
God loves everyone. But he can't allow everyone to continue doing the stupid shit they're doing. Otherwise, he needs to lead them to their own sin. When they come back to the source, when they come back to the creator and do the things the creator told us to do, that's when they have good things in their life. That's what he wants for everybody. Yes, God loves everybody, but not everybody doing the stupid bullshit they're doing.
Well, see, that's why I say to people, when people say, the worth is going to hell in a handbasket, only if you wanted to, only if you choose that side. Yeah. Because there's a
because we're going through here too. The filter. And there are
Yeah.
some that are going to be maintained in the third dimension, and
Yeah.
others that are going to ascend through the galactic filter, go to the other side. There will be a new heaven and a new earth, just as is written.
Correct.
Okay. But for that is people that have a resonance that is able to get through the filter. And the filter is what makes
Yep.
this a prison planet, to where
Yes.
if you desire evil or your own desires over anything else, then you're stuck here, because there's
Right,
no
correct.
use for you out in the bigger universe. Because the
Correct.
bigger universe needs you to be in sync with helping others
You
get
need to
things
start
done.
being positive and starting to go back towards the one. Correct. So
Now, being
that's
positive,
the
I'm
choice
not
that you have to
positive. I'm
make.
positive we're all
Purgatory,
fucked. But that's
purgatory is here, right? If you choose that road, you choose purgatory. You automatically are in purgatory. You'll never find, that is hell. That is the proverbial hell. You'll never, you're separated from God, and you will never be back with God until you choose to change, whether you like it or not.
But after a while, that door, and he says that door will be closed and you'll be outside forever of your own
Yep.
choice.
Of your own choice. Correct.
He wants everybody
Right.
in, but there's a way in. It's not doing whatever you want that's going to be in.
And that
And
the
that's
way in is, and I hate to point to a religion again, but Jesus said it, the way is through me. And he didn't mean you had to go through him. He meant you had to follow his teachings.
It's
what he
the
was teaching.
resonance. It's
The
the love.
resonance,
It's the helping
love.
others. It's
Yes.
being, being kind to the lepers and helping the blind see. And it's making the
Yep.
guy who's lame, look, get up, do something useful.
Doing good work with the good book and spreading the good word. Right. You say that anywhere in the world. And if anybody knows anything about Christianity, they know exactly what you're talking about when you say that.
Yeah.
Right. Those are people who are starting to make that choice. But that's the truth of it. Walk the walk, talk the talk. You can't just pretend to choose and say, okay, I'm going to say I chose, but man,
But
debauchery.
I'm still going to be an asshole to that
this.
guy on Monday because he was
can't do
a
that.
total dick on Friday.
Yeah, you can't. Do that.
No,
It's all in. It's all in or nothing. Yeah, that's the way it is.
have to
Checkered
be
flag or
born
crash,
again.
man. Yeah, but see, you and I and guys like us, this is our job. This is our mission, is to spread this word and get this word out there to the people, to the masses, the same way Jesus did. Not that I'm comparing myself to Jesus. I'm
it's the
not
work that
Jesus.
he
And I don't
gave
plan
us
on
to do.
sacrificing myself, but he is me. And I am him, just like I am Michael and I am Jacob and you are me. You're a reflection of me as I'm a reflection of you. We all are.
We
And
are
that's the
all
thing.
God seeing himself.
Yes. We are a daydream created by the one true creator who gave life to this entity who's now Leo to go and do whatever it is that I want to do and make the choices that I wanted to do. And oh, by the way, report back when you got something to report and make your way back to me. And then we'll figure out whether we're going to send
Because
you out
by
again.
the way, I need you to do this, that, and the other. That's why you
Right.
needed to get ready, because I got stuff for you to do.
Yep. Because by helping me, I'm going to help everyone else. And by helping everyone else, we're going to help the creator.
Because that's exactly what our job is, to help everyone else. We are God's hand on this earth.
Yep. Agreed.
How do we get people to awaken to that? Because I didn't want to be one of those Bible beating Christians that everybody goes,
Yeah, see, I don't
whatever."
usually use the terms from the Bible or preach one religion, because I think that if you take all the religions and you throw out all the semantics, you're going to find that basically makes up the whole. That's why the whole
Yeah.
coexist thing happens. You
The
get rid
problem
of the stupid stuff.
with that, Leonard, is that he told us about in the end, they would tell us that we are our own gods.
Right, which is true. And that's what people need to understand. But the
But
only way you
it's-
can
but
get them
it's-
there is somehow
but
you
we
have to
are
get them
not
to
God.
understand the all, right?
Yeah. See, but what they do is they distort the message to make it more agreeable to the individual, which therein lies the error and
Fracturing of the religion. That's speaking in tongue. That's the fracturization of all of us, because there's 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 different choices of religion to choose from. And they're all basically the same way. Once you get that understanding, then all of that goes away. Like
then
you were saying
people
before,
think
none
they
of it
start
matters.
deserving. Oh, I'm walking the path of Buddha, so I deserve. No. And see,
No.
that's the basic. We all deserve death, period. The end, because we all did
Correct.
stupid, bad shit. And somebody's got to pay for it. And paying
Right.
for it means, you get
And
your
the only
shit
way out of
recycled.
here is death. You don't get out of here unless you die anyway.
Yeah, the only way is recycling. Now, once we are in tune and resonance with the higher love, creative force, the one who sent his son to do what he had to do so that we would have that choice. because otherwise we don't have a choice. Then we're like the Jews that, you broke 10 of the 2,000 rules. Well, you're no longer deserving to go. Well, fuck it. If I'm not deserving, then I'm going to drink and I'm going to screw and I'm going to kill and I'm going to do whatever I want. If I'm lost anyway, I might as well enjoy myself on the way down.
And that's what they want you to believe, so that you won't. So you'll crash and burn, right?
And that's why he sent his son to say, hey, wait.
Yeah, it's not
Even
that.
if you did a bunch of shit, I'll still accept you, but just fix your residence.
Yeah, you got to fix some things. Yeah, you're not done forever. You just have to repent, man. Be sorry, be truly sorry, and then live the life that you should live the way you should live it, and you'll be just fine. And I tell people, you don't have to be spiritual. You don't even have to believe in God. If you are just a good person and you do good things and do good deeds for people and help people, it's the same thing. You are being holy. You are being spiritual.
but you eliminate the righteousness, and that's also written of in Revelation.
Well, see, here's my hope in that. My hope in that is that even if they go down that road because they're like, okay, I'm an atheist, and he's right, I'll go down that road. Eventually, it gets in there through osmosis, and they become spiritual. At some point, they'll realize that they have to be spiritual.
Hopefully, but not necessarily, because there are many who I used to be woke when I was a teenager, like 30 years before woke was a thing.
Right.
But I was a pain in the ass to everybody else because I realized that, well, everybody's living their thing. Just let them live. Why? Because all the things that these woke motherfuckers are seeing, I agreed with back then. Yeah, we got serious problems with the way that we act, the way that we treat people, the way that we discriminate, the way that we do this, do that, and the other. Why? Because we weren't walking according to God's will. And I saw that. But whenever these woke people, they're eliminating God from the whole hypothesis. And that's where morality is. And so that's what the Bible was talking about. They will live righteous lives without the reward because they eliminated the source of the righteousness.
There's no love there. There's no.
And that's why they're constantly pulling the thorn. Take you get a barb of wood in your splinter. Thank you. Taking a splinter out of somebody's eye. They're taking splinters out of everybody's eyes, and both their eyes are covered with planks.
And both their eyes are covered. Yeah, right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. They're destroying a bunch of people and destroying society in the middle because they're doing exactly what God told us that they were going to do.
Yep.
Because they don't have Him in their heart.
The opposite of what they need to do.
And we recognize the things that people do is wrong, but we can't sit down and judge them and do everything else. It's like we pray for them.
It's their choice.
We hope that they do right.
Yep. The only thing we could do is say, this is what I've learned, and this is what I've gathered from Jesus, Muhammad, these people that were in history that were different prophets for different times, and they were saying, and not just them, but Ra in different religions around the world. There are these people that look at the philosophers like we were talking about before with Aristotle and all of those, Plato, and they're there. You just have to see them and understand what they're saying. And if you have a little bit of humility, but the only way that works again is you have to look within, right? You have to start taking care of yourself. And once you do that, you can't help but shine.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you can't help but shine. And that's the truth of it. So
once I'm starting that little course right now. So hopefully he's leading me down the right path. He's been telling me this for years, and I've been stubborn about it because, part of me still lives in this world, but at the same time.
Well, I mean, we're always going to be a work in progress forever. If we knew everything we would need to know to ascend or graduate, we'd be gone. But unless we decided to come back to help again. But then we get mind wiped again when we're born here, and we have to relearn all those.
You got to learn all the shit all over again.
Yep.
Which is what we did. I mean, I was interested in the Bermuda Triangle, the Nazca lines, and right. Atlantis when I was 7-8 years old. Yeah. My dad would look for me playing soccer or playing basketball or something else, and he'd see my friends and, where's Michael? Oh, he's in the library reading.
That was our internet, my friend. We're at that age group. I'm only 3 years older than you. You said you're 50,
yeah,
I'm 53.
And hey, you know what? The library had air conditioning.
Yep. And it had drinking water. You didn't get thirsty. You didn't have to worry about being out in the heat. And you went over there and you had to smell the books, love the smell of books, learn the Dewey Decimal System, and go find your book, man.
There you go. The Dewey Decimal. Man, the alphabet. You learn the alphabet real quick. Alphabetical order.
alphabetical order and then numeric, alphanumerical, right? That's a duodecimal system, alphanumerical.
No,
All right,
that's on
guys, I'm
this
going to have to get
column,
off here.
that's
We're
this
getting close
shelf,
to
it's the
8
other
p.m.
shelf.
for me over here, and I got to get some dinner going for my mom. So
All right.
I'm going to have to call it. But Michael, man, we need to talk, bro. We need to do some more shows, and
Definitely.
I'm going to see if I
It's
can get you
quarter
to
to
be
midnight at
on
my time. So yeah, it's and we're going on 3.5 hours of
Yeah.
been talking, Jake. So yeah, we always do short podcasts, don't we?
I used to do my podcast used to go on for 3 hours, and I started cutting them down to like an hour. But easily, when you get in a conversation like this, it's easy to time just
Dude, how
flies.
many topics have we not touched on?
Oh, there's still a bazillion topics we haven't touched on. We could go on forever.
We could go for a while.
It would have been
Definitely.
funnier if I would have
That made
said
me
one. How many topics?
Well,
have we
you
not
wouldn't
talked
be
about?
wrong.
One.
You wouldn't be wrong. Life.
Either way, it's not wrong. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Michael, it was great to meet you. Jacob, great to meet you just 24 hours ago. But yes, the three of us need to keep in touch. I definitely want to have you guys on my
How
show.
did you get in touch with Jake? Was it through the YouTube?
Jake found me. He found me through a messenger on YouTube. I don't know how he found me. He just said, "Hey, I just started a podcast. I'd love to have you on my podcast." I said, "Sure."
Well, that's fantastic.
So you
Good
got to
job,
ask Jacob how he found me.
Thank
Did the
you very
universe
much.
give him to me?
Because we're
Did
gonna
he
have
see a
to
video of
maintain
mine? I don't
contact.
know.
So
Yeah.
we'll put the link on
Hey,
this
hey,
on Facebook or something else.
Leonard, go ahead and share your information right now in the chat, and then Michael can get it and he can copy it.
Yeah, I'm still
All right,
recording anyway.
okay, yeah, let me do this. I'm in full screen here. So let me get in a full screen here. And yeah, I will do just that. I'm going to put I will put my Facebook page and my YouTube page in the chat, okay?
All righty. That'll work.
And it shouldn't come up on the recording as well.
Well, not your recording, but I'm still recording. But yeah,
No, I know I'm saying it shouldn't come up on the recording unless you have it set in your settings.
Okay, I'll tell you what,
that's true, to
Jake,
show the chat and that sort of thing.
Chat.
But
this is what I'm going to
either
do,
way,
Michael. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to link it to Jake in Messenger,
there you go.
and then Jake can forward it to you in Messenger, okay? In Facebook Messenger. Is that cool?
That'll work perfectly.
All right, so
As
let me
long
go
as we
over.
keep contact, that's the important thing.
Agreed. So let me go here. Is this, yeah, now here's my, so I just put the link to my Facebook page in the messenger on Facebook to Jake. And now I'm putting my podcast channel on YouTube in there as well. So once you, in fact, then you can find me and send me a friend's request.
There you
Maybe I
go.
can do that too. Hold on. I'm going to give you my personal Facebook page as well. I'm going to link that. So then you can send me a friend's request, Michael, and then we'll be sure to stay in touch. Okay.
No worries. Yeah, because Jake and I talk on Messenger on Facebook as well. What are we going to do when Facebook gets taken down? Because it's pretty close. But
Well,
anyway,
there's other places. I'm trying to think of what there
Well,
is.
yeah,
There's
I'm also on Gab. I'm on Rumble. I'm on Minds.
Gab. I was
I'm
gonna say
on
Gab,
BitChute.
Rumble. Yeah, I'm on Gab. I'm on Rumble. I'm on.
Yeah, but
BitChute.
I've got 13 years of memories stored up on Facebook. That's going to be a bitch when that all goes down.
Yeah, me too. I started my Facebook stuff in 2012. If they delete me, I have like Ancient Aliens Worldwide. The group is mine. I created that, and there's 279, almost 300,000 members in that group that we've created back in 2012. Biggest
Nice.
group on the planet for hunting UFOs.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
And on that great note, I'm going to stop with the recording because we're on 3 some odd hours. Leonard, thank you very much.
Yep.
Jake,
Thank you.
awesome as always. This is episode 2, which is also going to be another hour and some odd from the 2 hours that we had on the first one. They'll both be up on my Rumble. I'm not sure if I'm going to put them on YouTube. I'm sticking to the smaller ones on YouTube, but eventually they'll all be on Minds, Gab, BitChute, and everywhere else where I find eventually a home. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
week.
you.